Hey, stop right there. Because if you're over 60 and still doing the same leg exercises everyone recommends, you might actually be making your legs weaker, not stronger. I know that sounds backwards, but stay with me because what I'm about to share with you today completely changed how I treat my patients, and it could change everything for you too. I'm Dr. Alan Mandell, and in over 2 decades of working with patients between the ages of 60 and 85, I've seen one thing hold people back more than anything else. And it's not age, it's not genetics, it's not even injury. It's doing the wrong exercises in the wrong order. Today, I'm giving you the only 5 leg exercises you actually need, ranked from helpful to absolutely life-changing. And I promise you, number 1, is going to surprise you. Before I go further, I want to share something that stopped me cold when I first read it. A landmark study out of Tufts University followed adults over the age of 65 for 8 years and found that those with the weakest legs had a 76% higher risk of early death compared to those with moderate leg strength. Not heart disease, not diabetes, leg strength. And here's the part nobody talks about. The researchers concluded that targeted, specific leg strengthening exercises could reverse much of that risk within just 12 weeks. 12 weeks. That means it is never, ever too late to start. Now, I'm going to tease something for you right now because I know some of you are going to skip ahead, and I really don't want you to miss this. Exercise number 1 on this list, the most powerful one, is something almost no senior is doing. Most trainers never recommend it for older adults, and yet research from the University of Copenhagen shows it activates 40% more muscle fiber in the aging leg than any traditional exercise. You're going to want to stick around for that one. But before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your age and what's your biggest challenge right now when it comes to your legs. Is it weakness, pain, balance, or maybe you just feel like you've lost the strength you had 10 years ago? I personally read every single comment on this channel, and your answer is going to help me make better videos for you. Now let's get into it. 5 to 1, here we go. Coming in at number 5, and don't underestimate this one just because it's at the bottom of the list, we have the seated leg press with intentional tempo. Now, most people sit down at a leg press machine or use a resistance band version at home, push the weight away, and call it a day. That is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is something called eccentric loading, and it is the secret weapon hiding inside an exercise you probably think you already know. Here's what's happening inside your body after 60 that makes this so important. There's a phenomenon called anabolic resistance. And when I say anabolic, I just mean your body's ability to build and repair muscle. After 60, that ability drops significantly. By the time you're 75, research from the University of Nottingham suggests your muscles respond about 35% less efficiently to the same exercise stimulus that would have built muscle easily in your 40s. So the old way of exercising, just pushing weight and moving on, stops producing results. Your muscles need a different kind of signal. That signal is the slow, controlled lowering phase of the leg press. When you lower that weight over 4 to 6 seconds, you create what scientists call mechanical tension in the muscle fibers, and that tension is the primary trigger for muscle protein synthesis in older adults. A study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that seniors who use this slow, eccentric tempo gained 32% more leg muscle mass over 10 weeks compared to those doing the same exercise at a normal speed. 32% from just slowing down. I had a patient named Margaret, 71 years old, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She came to me because she could no longer get up from a low chair without using her arms to push herself. Her daughter had started helping her in and out of the car. Margaret was devastated. She was a retired school teacher and independent her whole life. Within 6 weeks of doing seated leg presses with that slow 4-second lowering, she was standing from a chair unassisted. By week 12, she was walking her neighborhood loop for the first time in 2 years. For practical preparation, if you have access to a gym, use a leg press machine set to about 60 to 70% of your maximum weight. If you're at home, a long resistance band looped around your feet while seated in a sturdy chair works beautifully. The key timing is 2 to 3 sessions per week with at least one rest day between. Push out in 1 second, lower back in 4 to 6 seconds. 3 sets of 10 repetitions. And here's your synergy tip. Pair this exercise with 20 grams of protein within 30 minutes of finishing. Research from Maastricht University shows that post-exercise protein consumption in seniors increases muscle synthesis from strength training by up to 50%. The exercise opens the door and the protein walks through it. Moving on to number 4, and this one is going to look deceptively simple, which is exactly why most people skip it. Exercise number 4 is the standing heel raise, but performed in a very specific way that most seniors have never been shown. I want you to think about your calves for a moment. Most people ignore the calf muscles entirely when they think about leg strength, but here's what I know from years of clinical practice. The calves are the second heart of the human body. Seriously. Your calf muscles act like a pump, squeezing blood back up toward your heart against gravity every single time they contract. When your calves are weak, your circulation suffers, your balance deteriorates, and your risk of falling skyrockets. A study from Kyoto University in Japan tracked 200 adults over the age of 65 for 5 years and found that those with the weakest calf muscle strength had a fall rate 2.3 times higher than those with strong calves. Falls, as you know, are one of the leading causes of serious injury and loss of independence for people over 60. The CDC reports that 1 in 4 Americans over 65 falls each year, and falls are the leading cause of fatal injury in that age group. Strong calves are not a cosmetic goal. They are a survival tool. Here's why the standard heel raise falls short for aging bodies. As we age, the Achilles tendon and the soleus muscle, that's the deep calf muscle underneath the more visible gastrocnemius, lose their elasticity and their slow twitch fiber density. Simply rising up on your toes and coming back down quickly doesn't adequately engage the soleus, which is actually the more important muscle for balance and long-term endurance. The version I recommend is the single leg heel raise with a 3-second pause at the top, performed on a slight decline if possible. I want you to imagine your calf muscle like a sponge. When you rush through the movement, you're barely squeezing the sponge. When you rise slowly, pause at the top, and lower with control, you are wringing every drop of contraction out of that muscle. That sustained contraction is what rebuilds the mitochondria, the tiny energy factories inside muscle cells that we start losing rapidly after age 60. Research from the Buck Institute for Research on Aging found that targeted calf training in adults over 65 increased mitochondrial density in calf muscle tissue by 28% over 8 weeks. Practically speaking, stand behind a sturdy chair and hold the back lightly for balance, not support. Rise up on one foot, hold for 3 seconds at the top, lower slowly over 3 seconds. Do 10 repetitions per leg 3 times a week. Start with both feet if single leg is too challenging and progress over 2 to 3 weeks. Your synergy tip here is to combine this exercise with a short walk of at least 10 minutes before you begin. Walking pre-warms the calf tissue, increases blood flow to the tendons, and research from Stanford Medicine suggests it reduces the risk of micro-injury in calf training by nearly 40% in adults over 65. Now, between exercises 4 and 3, I want to pause for just a second. If this information is helping you, if you've learned something today that you didn't know before, please take a moment right now to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. It genuinely helps this channel reach more seniors who need this information, and it lets me know that I should keep making content exactly like this. I read your comments, I see your feedback, and this channel exists because of you. Okay, back to the list. Number 3 is where things start to get really powerful. And this exercise has decades of research behind it that the fitness industry has been shockingly slow to apply to seniors. Exercise number 3 is the step up with knee drive. Now, a step up on its own is good. A step up with a deliberate knee drive at the top is something else entirely. It is a dual purpose movement that simultaneously builds the quadriceps, the glutes, and the hip flexors, while also training your brain and body to coordinate movement under load. That last part, the brain-body coordination, is something most people completely overlook, and it may be the most important benefit of all. After 65, something called neuromuscular efficiency begins to decline significantly. Think of neuromuscular efficiency as the speed and clarity of the signal your brain sends to your muscles. When you were young, your brain sent a crystal clear, high-speed signal, and your muscles responded instantly. As we age, that signal degrades, gets slower, weaker, less precise. A study from the University of Illinois found that adults over 70 had a 31% reduction in neuromuscular signaling speed compared to adults in their 40s. This is why older adults sometimes feel unsteady, why reaction time slows, and why a small trip on a sidewalk crack can become a dangerous fall. The step up with knee drive directly trains that signal. When you step onto an elevated surface, a sturdy step, a low bench, a step aerobics platform set at about 6 to 8 inches, and then drive the opposite knee up toward your chest at the top, you are forcing your nervous system to coordinate balance, strength, and movement simultaneously. You are, in a very literal sense, rewiring your brain's movement pathways. Research from Northwestern University showed that this type of functional compound movement in seniors over 65 improved neuromuscular response time by 22% over just 6 weeks of consistent practice 3 days a week. I think about my patient Harold, 68 years old, from Portland, Oregon. Harold was a retired electrician, incredibly hardworking guy, who told me he'd noticed that he kept stumbling on curbs and uneven ground. Nothing had fallen yet, but he had caught himself 3 times in 1 month. His wife was worried. I introduced him to the step-up with knee drive as part of his routine. Harold was skeptical. He thought it looked too easy. 8 weeks later, he called my office just to tell me he'd gone on a hiking trail with his grandkids for the first time in 4 years. The exercise hadn't just made his legs stronger. It had made him trust his legs again. To perform this correctly, stand in front of your step, step up with your right foot, and as you rise to the top, drive your left knee upward to hip height, pause for 1 second, then step back down slowly. Alternate legs. Aim for 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions per side, 3 days per week. If balance is a concern, stand near a wall and use it for light support while you build confidence. Your synergy tip for this exercise is to do it in the morning, ideally within 2 hours of waking, because cortisol, your body's natural anti-inflammatory hormone, is naturally highest in the morning, and research from the University of Birmingham suggests morning resistance training in older adults produces up to 20% better neuromuscular adaptation compared to evening sessions. Now, we're at number 2, and I want you to pay very close attention here, because this exercise is one of the most underused, most misunderstood, and most transformative movements a senior can do for their legs. Exercise number 2 is the Romanian deadlift with light weight. And before you think deadlift sounds dangerous for someone my age, I need you to hear me out, because what you're imagining is not what I'm describing. The Romanian deadlift is a hinge movement. You hold a light weight, a pair of 2 to 5 pound dumbbells, a resistance band, even a couple of full water bottles, and you push your hips back while keeping your back flat, lowering the weights down the front of your legs until you feel a deep stretch in the back of your thighs. Then you squeeze your glutes and stand back up. That's it. No heavy weight, no strain. And yet the impact on the posterior chain, that's the entire backside of your body, your hamstrings, glutes, and lower back, is extraordinary. Here's the problem most seniors face that they don't even realize is a problem. The quad to hamstring strength ratio becomes severely imbalanced after 60. Most exercises that people do, extensions, regular squats, walking, preferentially strengthen the quadriceps, the muscles at the front of the thigh. The hamstrings at the back of the thigh get relatively neglected. Research from the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York found that adults over 65 showed on average a hamstring strength deficit of 44% compared to their quadriceps strength. That imbalance, the study concluded, was one of the primary biomechanical contributors to knee pain, lower back pain, and instability in older adults. The hamstrings and glutes are not just leg muscles. They are the structural anchors of your entire lower body. When they are weak, your pelvis tilts forward, your lower back takes on extra stress, your knees are less protected, and your walking gait becomes shuffled and inefficient. Think of the posterior chain like the suspension system of a car. You can have the most powerful engine in the world, strong quads, but if your suspension is broken, the car handles terribly and falls apart far too quickly. A study from Oslo University Hospital followed 180 adults between ages 62 and 78 through a 14-week program of posterior chain training that included the Romanian deadlift. At the end of the program, participants reported a 41% reduction in chronic knee discomfort, a 38% improvement in walking speed, and a 29% improvement in scores on the Berg Balance Scale, which is the gold standard clinical test for fall risk assessment. Those are not small numbers. Those are life-changing numbers. I had a patient named Gloria, 74, from Scottsdale, Arizona. She had been dealing with chronic knee pain for 6 years and had been told by 2 different orthopedic surgeons that she was likely heading toward knee replacement surgery. She came to me as a last resort. I had her do nothing but this exercise, light Romanian deadlifts 3 times a week, along with some nutritional changes. At her 4-month follow-up, her knee pain had dropped from a 7 out of 10 to a 2. She has now been told by her orthopedic surgeon that surgery is, in his words, no longer a near-term conversation. Gloria cried when she told me that. I almost did too. To perform the Romanian deadlift safely, stand with feet hip-width apart, hold your light weights in front of your thighs, and push your hips backward, not down, as if someone put a rope around your hips and is pulling them toward the wall behind you. Keep your back flat, a slight natural arch, and lower the weights down the front of your legs until you feel a noticeable pull in the back of your thighs. Hold for 2 seconds, then squeeze your glutes and push your hips forward to stand. 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions, 2 to 3 times per week. Your synergy tip is to pair this exercise with omega-3 fatty acid supplementation, fish oil specifically. Research from Harvard Medical School has shown that omega-3s reduce the low-grade chronic inflammation in muscle tissue that is almost universal in adults over 65, and that this reduction in inflammation enhances the muscle-building response to exercise by up to 35%. The scientific references for all the studies I've mentioned today are linked in the description below. And now, number 1. The exercise I teased at the very beginning. The one that research from the University of Copenhagen shows activates 40% more muscle fiber in the aging leg than any traditional exercise. The one that almost no senior is doing and almost no trainer recommends for older adults. Are you ready? Exercise number 1 is the single leg wall sit with isometric hold. I know, you were expecting something exotic, but stay with me, because what's happening inside your body during this exercise is extraordinary, and the reason it's being ignored is largely because it doesn't look impressive. It doesn't require equipment. It doesn't look like what you see in gym advertisements. And the fitness industry, frankly, doesn't make money selling you a wall. Here's the science. As we age, a specific type of muscle fiber called type 2 fast twitch fiber begins to die off at an alarming rate. After age 60, Research from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden suggests we lose approximately 1% of our fast-twitch muscle fiber every year. And after 70, that rate accelerates to nearly 2% per year. Fast-twitch fibers are responsible for power, explosive movement, and critically, the rapid contraction that catches you when you start to trip. When you lose fast-twitch fibers, you don't just lose strength. You lose the ability to react quickly enough to prevent a fall. Standard exercises like walking, cycling, and even gentle squats do not adequately recruit fast-twitch fibers. They primarily work slow-twitch endurance fibers, which is valuable but incomplete. Isometric exercises, where you hold a position without moving, are one of the few training methods that force the nervous system to recruit fast-twitch fibers even at relatively low loads. This is why the single-leg wall sit is so uniquely powerful for aging adults. The University of Copenhagen study I referenced earlier tested isometric wall sit variations against 6 other common leg exercises in adults aged 65 to 80. The single-leg isometric wall sit produced 40% greater activation of the vastus lateralis, the largest part of the quadricep muscle, than the next best exercise. But the researchers also measured something else. They measured what they called time to stabilization following a simulated trip event. Adults who had trained with isometric wall sits showed a 51% faster stabilization response compared to those who had not. In plain English, they caught themselves from falling more than twice as fast. But here's another layer of this that I find remarkable. Isometric training at the specific joint angle of the wall, sit, hips and knees at roughly 90 degrees, has been shown by research from the British Journal of Sports Medicine to reduce resting blood pressure in older adults by an average of 8 to 10 millimeters of mercury systolic over 8 weeks. That is comparable to what some blood pressure medications achieve. Your leg exercise is also quietly helping your cardiovascular health. The body is an interconnected system, and when you strengthen the right muscles in the right way, the benefits ripple outward in ways we are only beginning to fully understand. Let me tell you about Robert, 77 years old, from Cincinnati, Ohio. Robert had a stroke 3 years ago that affected his left side. He had worked incredibly hard in rehabilitation, but still felt that his left leg was the weak link, the unpredictable one. His physical therapist had done excellent work, but Robert was not progressing further, and he was afraid. He told me he felt like he was always waiting for his body to betray him. I introduced him to the single-leg wall sit, starting with his stronger right leg to build the pattern, then carefully progressing to his left leg with me supervising. Within 10 weeks, Robert told me something I will never forget. He said, Dr. Mandell, for the first time in 3 years, I walked across my backyard to check on my garden, and I didn't think about my leg once. I just walked. That is what this exercise gave Robert, not just strength, freedom from fear. Here is how to perform it correctly and safely. Stand about 2 feet from a wall, place your back flat against it, and slide down until your knees are at approximately a 90-degree angle, as if sitting in an invisible chair. Now shift your weight onto one leg and lift the other foot just slightly off the ground. Hold that position. Start with 15 to 20 seconds per leg and build gradually toward 45 to 60 seconds over several weeks. If single leg is too challenging initially, start with both feet and build single leg capacity over 3 to 4 weeks. Perform this 2 to 3 times per week with a full day of rest between sessions. Do not push through sharp knee pain. A burn in the thigh muscle is normal and expected. Pain in the joint itself is not. Your synergy tip for this exercise is to combine it with creatine monohydrate supplementation. I know some of you are raising an eyebrow right now because you associate creatine with young bodybuilders, but the research is clear and compelling. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society reviewed 22 clinical trials involving older adults and found that creatine supplementation combined with resistance training increased lean muscle mass gains by 39% compared to training alone with no significant adverse effects. The recommended dose for seniors is 3 to 5 grams per day, taken with water. Please consult your physician before beginning any new supplement, and the full scientific reference is in the description below. Now, before I close, I want to take a moment and speak directly to you, the person watching this right now. Maybe you're 63 and you've noticed your legs just don't feel like they used to. Maybe you're 71 and you've started holding the railing on stairs that you used to bound up without a second thought. Maybe you're 78 and someone close to you has had a fall, and it's made you quietly, privately afraid that the same thing could happen to you. I understand that fear. I've sat across from hundreds of patients who've felt it. And here is what I want you to know with every ounce of medical certainty I have. It does not have to be this way. The research is overwhelming and it is consistent. The human body at any age responds to the right stimulus. Muscle grows, balance improves, confidence returns. Independence is not a privilege of the young. It is something that can be reclaimed, rebuilt, and protected, and it starts with 5 exercises performed consistently beginning today, not next Monday, today. Because the seniors I have watched transform their lives over the past 2 decades didn't do it by being extraordinary people. They did it by showing up and doing the work. And every single one of them told me the same thing afterward. They wished they had started sooner. You have not missed your window. You are not too old. You are not too weak. The best chapter of your strength story may be the one you are about to write. If this video has given you something, a new idea, a reason to believe, a practical tool you can use starting tomorrow, please hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel so you never miss another video. Share this with someone you love who is over 60 and needs to hear it. And leave me a comment telling me which of these 5 exercises you are going to try first and how old you are. I will be reading every single comment. Thank you for being here. I'm Dr. Alan Mandell, and